All right, welcome back. In this next video, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about percents, and we're going to talk about how to figure out what a percent is, or figure out what number is a certain percent of something, or figure out what number a number is a certain percent of. Okay, so in this first example, the way we're going to introduce this is with basketball. And Steph Curry, I don't know if you know who he is. Most people seem to know who he is. Good basketball player. And in this example, it says that suppose he makes 9 out of every 10 free throw attempts. Okay, so free throws when you're shooting the ball to the basket, nobody can bug you, so you have a pretty good chance of making it. And you can see here we have check marks and an X, so we have 9 green check marks, which means he made 9, and the red X means he missed 1 out of 10. So the question is, 9 is what percent of 10? So what we're going to do is set up and solve a proportion that shows what's going on in this scenario. And so we can use this little graphic that's down below the picture. And the thing I want to point out is what's underneath the graphic is percent. Okay, so this is X percent and 100%. Because if you look at the question, 9 is what percent of 10? So we're looking for the percent, so that's why there's an X there. So just remember that we have percent down on the bottom here. And the numbers up on top are his actual free throws. So the gold bar represents he made 9, and then the whole bar represents the total number of shots that he took, or 10, right? Okay, so one thing that can really help us with this is if we remember that percent is always out of 100. Percent means per 100. So percent is always out of 100. So if we set up a little fraction that says percent over 100, we always know that's true. So we can always just start by setting up percent over 100. And then we need to think about percent is a part, 100 is the whole. And so we need to think about the percent being a part, 100 being the whole. Well, the word is represents the part, and the word of represents the whole thing. And one thing that we can do is come over to our little question and say, it says 9 is, so 9 is, so the 9 is, and then we have what percent of 10, so of 10. So if we can get into the habit of looking for the is and looking for the of, we can figure out where each number is going to have to go. Excuse me. All right, so if we go ahead and set up our proportion now. So the percent, we don't know what it is, so we can put an X there. And we have 100. And then we have 9 is, so the 9 goes up on top, and the 10 goes on the bottom. And so then we can do our cross multiplying. Some people like to do that. Draw a big X that shows cross multiplying. So we end up with 10x is equal to 900. And then when we divide by 10, x equals 90. So the answer is 90%. Now, this is a fairly simple example. You could probably figure out 9 out of 10 is 90%, because throughout school you've had assignments that are probably out of 10 points, and you know that 9 out of 10 is 90%. Now, you could also draw it all out and draw 90 green check marks, 10 red X's, to understand that there's 90% of the free throws are made. Okay, so the key here is remembering this fraction right here, or the proportion, I mean, two fractions. So if we can remember percent over 100 is equal to is over of, we can very easily solve any question about percents or what percent a number is of something. Okay, so let's scroll down and see if we can put this to work. All right, so the first thing I would do when I'm faced with any of these problems is number one, the numbers on the bottom are always percents. And the thing that can help you identify that is they're all out of 100, right? But the first thing I would do is I would write down that percent over 100 equals is over of. And then I would highlight where I see is and of. Okay, so I'm going to first say, all right, 35% of 45. And then is what number? So right away I know what my is and of are. Is an X because I don't know what it is. Of is 45 because it says of 45. And then I know for my percent I can put 35 in there because it says 35%. So I'm going to say 35 over 100 equals the is, well, I don't know what is, and the of is 45. Okay, so another way to think about it is with this graphic here, the total is, or the whole is the of, so 45 is the total length of the bar. The question mark represents the is, what number is, equal to the purple amount of the bar. Well, we know it's 35%. Now we just need to know what 35% of 45 is. So, all right, so we can keep going and cross multiply. So we have, this one's going to be a little bit more challenging because we're probably going to need to grab a calculator. The first one we can do, though, it's 100x. But then 35 times 45, I don't know if there are a lot of people that can do that in their head. Maybe. So we have 1,575. And then the nice thing with percents is we end up having to divide by 100 sometimes, which is a pretty easy thing to do. So in this case, we end up with x is equal to 15.75. And since it's a nice, neat decimal that stopped, I'm going to keep that whole thing. All right, second one. Same thing. The whole percent over 100 equals is over of. I've got it there on my first problem, so I don't necessarily need to write it down again. So I just need to remember, hey, I've got this right here. I can use it for all three problems. I just need to remember that. So it says 84 is. So we have to be careful how we read this. Sometimes the is will be in front. Sometimes the is will be behind. In this case, the is behind. 84 is what percent of 120? So there we go. We've identified our is and our of. And what percent means we don't know what the percent is, so we can say x over 100. So there's our percent, x over 100, is equal to our is over the of, so 84 over 120. And again, you can look at that little graphic and see that, oh, the 120 is the whole thing, so that goes on the bottom. The 84 is the part, so that goes on the top. So 84 is what percent of 120? So we cross multiply. So when we cross multiply here, we have 120x equals, now 84 times 100 is a little easier. We can just add the 2 zeros to the 84. So we have 8400. And then we'll divide by 120. Now this one probably ought to grab a calculator just to be safe. So 8400 divided by 120 is 70. All right, last one. Same thing. We'll identify the is. Oh, I don't want that. I want this. We're going to identify the is and the of. So 12 is. So there we go. We can highlight that. 25% of what number? So there we go. We know what our is and our of is. And we can look at the graphic and see, well, yeah, 12 is the part. X represents the what number or the whole, right? So we can then set up our proportion. Well, we have the 25%, so we know that always goes with the 100. So we have 25 over 100 equals the is over the of. So we got to go back to that first one and look at that green highlighted thing, is over of, right? So 12 over what number? All right, so we are going to cross multiply. And when we cross multiply, we have 25x. Again, we have times 100, so we can just add those 2 zeros to the 12. So we have 12, 0, 0. And then, now if you think money, you might be able to figure this out. 1200 divided by 25, but grab a calculator. It's always a good idea to grab a calculator. So x is 48. Okay, so the key here is remembering that proportion. Percent over 100 is equal to is over of, and then identifying your is and your of. So go ahead and give these three a try on your own. And remember, these three are problems that you need to enter in Schoology when you're done with this whole thing. And when you're ready, come on back to the video and we'll go through some more examples. All right, so in these next examples, we don't have the little diagram, and that's okay. We can do this without the diagram, because I think the is over of is a really helpful tool. And if we can remember that is over of, and I'm going to write it up over here just so we have it. Percent over 100 equals is over of. I would just get in the habit of always writing that down so that you have it and using it to solve these problems. Okay, so one thing we could do is go through and just highlight the first thing. So we want to know what is. So is what number in the first one? And then the of is of 1800. Okay, so we can set up our proportion. Percent over 100, 12 over 100 equals is, well, that's x, and of is 1800. Okay, when we cross multiply here, we have 100x equals, well, what's 12 times 1800? Oh, a big number, 21,600. And then we can divide that by 100. And we get x is 216. Simple enough. All right, same thing. Is and of. Notice how I'm using green for is and red for of. So 123.75 is So that's our is. 55% of what number? So there we go. We can set up our proportion. So we have, remember, percent is always over 100. I don't know if I can say that enough. And then we have is over of. So 123.75 over x. All right, if we cross multiply, we have 55x equals, well, with 100, multiplying 123.75 times 100, we're just going to move that decimal 2 places. So grab a calculator if you need to, but it's 12,375. And then we'll divide by 55. We're going to need a calculator for this. 12375. Whoops. 12375 divided by 55 is 225. So x equals 225. All right, and last one, 114. Start with green. Green is my is. 114 is what percent of 120? So then we can set up a proportion. I'm going to say it again. Percent is always over 100. So it's what percent? So it's x over 100 equals 114. That's our is. And our of is 120. Okay, we'll cross multiply. So we have 120x equals, remember when we multiply by 100, we just add 2 zeros. And then we have to divide by 120. So we'll grab a calculator. 11400 divided by 120, 95. So there we go. All right. You got 3 more. So do these 3 on your own, and when you're done, you're going to enter all 6 of these into Schoology.